Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machan Leira Online Smicha. I'd like to discuss a halacha which is very much connected to a special minig that many shuls have, and perhaps this became the biggest attraction in the shul. And there is even some that say that people come to shul more for the mingling of what takes place during the kidush than as often as they are makbid on the tefillah b'tzibur zman, and that is the kidush time, and especially when it goes a little, maybe you could use the word overboard, and lavish kidush, and we'll discuss some of the halachas that are connected to this. And I would like to first quote 2 or 3 different halachas of the Alter Rebbe from different places, and see what we could derive from here, if this is the proper way, what issues might come up when spending a lot of time in shul after davening and a lavish kiddush, how to tackle this thing. First of all, we all know that Suda Shabbos is a very important thing in Shabbos, and that's it's part of what the Karosel is Shabbos Oineg. Shabbos has to be a time of pleasure, and the Chazal tell us that one of the ways you express pleasure is by having a Suda. And it's also very important to know that in the Suda that we speak about Suda Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe says in Siman Ayin Dalad Reish Seif Hey that Afilu im Achal Adam Kol Minei Madanim, even if a person will eat all good sweets and Minei Tafshilin and all different types of dishes and all good kugels and herrings and everything, and Afal Pi Shehem Mechamishes Aminim, even if they're from the 5 grain. A person does not fulfill the mitzvah of Shalosh Shudas, of the mitzvah of Suda Shabbos, ad sheyochel lechem. The mitzvah of Suda Shabbos you fulfill when you eat bread. What bread? Shemavarchem olav hamoitzi uberchas hamazon. And Alter Rebbe in the parentheses continues, v'oid sheikar su'udahu lechem. When you think about a suda, you always have to connect it with bread. Sha'alav yichya adam. Why? Why is it important to have a meal with bread, challah? Because when it talks about the story of the mun, the eating of the mun, from there we learn that you have to have shalosh shudas. Nemar bo lechem. The Torah uses the word lechem. Shenemar. So we see, first of all, that in every Suda Shabbos, you should have lechem, and that is the Iker HaSuda. Now, we all know that Lubavitch Minig is not to have the third meal belechem, and that's a discussion for itself, and that we know the Sikh of the Rebbe. But let's talk about the first 2 meals. The first 2 meals, you need to have a Suda Shabbos, and now the Alter Rebbe is pretty clear that it needs to be lechem. Now, let me quote another halacha. In Siman Reish Pei Ches, Seif Yud Gimel, the Alter Rebbe talks about the Shabbos morning meal, the Shabbos day meal, the Suda Shabbos by day. And the Alter Rebbe says, Im Ikdima Lecho B'Shabbos, Koidam Zman HaSuda B'Choil, if you eat the Shabbos Suda time earlier than when you usually eat, let's say, lunch, Hu Oineg Loi, if to eat a little earlier would be a pleasure for you, you're hungry a little because the last night's Shabbos meal already was fully digested. It's best to have the Shabbos meal, Shabbos day earlier than a regular lunchtime. Because this is part of honoring Shabbos. Whereas a regular lunchtime, you might come in very hungry and you overwork. And Shabbos, you don't wait to the last moment as you're starving. Shabbos, you should have a te'oven, hunger for the meal. You should have a desire eating the meal. You should eat it earlier in the day. Tzarich lahakter. If for whatever reason for this person to eat the meal a little later than the weekday meal feels better, tzarich la'acher, so he has to delay it. V'zeu kvoidoi, and this is the honor of Shabbos. Shemis'ava lecho. You only eat the meal when you want to eat. V'oichel l'tei oven, and when you eat the meal, you're eating it with a geschmack. You don't eat when you're starving. You don't eat when you're full. You eat to the Shabbos with a geschmack. Now what do we see? There is two parts to this. A, Suda Shabbos is pas. B, whatever Suda Shabbos is, pas, or whatever it is, should be eaten l'tei oven. Should be eaten in a geschmack, not when you're starving and not when you're fasting. Now in Shulchan Aruch, it also says, in Siman Reish Peiches, it says, Sif Aleph, that on Shabbos morning, you shouldn't eat too late in the day. Either chatzos, different opinions, at what point you shouldn't fast to Shabbos, into Shabbos. You should make, Alter Rebbe says, Tzarich lemar lechol soif shas, you should make sure to eat before the end of the 6th hour of the day. Sha'asur lehisanes b'Shabbos ad chatzos. It is prohibited to fast on Shabbos once chatzos enters. And you'll see it even in the Siddur before Musaf. There is a quote from the Shulchan Aruch where it says, hey, don't kratz around, because you're not supposed to come to the Shabbos meal hungry, and you're not supposed to fast a half a day on Shabbos. So how do you dodge this bullet? So the easier thing would be to say, I'm not fasting. In the morning I wake up, I take a cup of coffee, and if you follow the Lubavitch minig and you have mezainas for and daven, and it's eichid good, so you got rid of the issue of fasting. So now I'm not going to come to chatzos or teisha shois a pesheya because I didn't fast. From the other hand, you still didn't have Suda Shabbos. The coffee and cake, whatever you had, doesn't answer the problem of Suda Shabbos. Suda Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe says, is only with bread, with lechem. Now, there are those, the Mishnah Berurah and Sif Katan Beis and Siman Reish Peiches say that there are those that are not makbid of this, not fasting, sounds like a Chassidish taich, but there's those who are not makbid of going into past chatzos or whatever, because they say it in the name of the Mordechai or other Rishonim. If it's l'tzorech tefillah or tzorech Torah, if you're davening barichas, you're learning chassidus or whatever it is, the Mishnah Berurah obviously didn't say chassidus. He said it's tzorech tefillah or tzorech Torah. You're allowed to delay past chatzos, but tziruf with the shittas Magen Avram, that the way you calculate the hours of the day is not from when day starts, rather from when you wake up, or whatever. But the fact is, now we know that it's preferably to eat something before chatzos, and then the meal also has to be done l'tei oven. So now we run into another problem. The other problem is, so you did have coffee and cake in the morning. You daven the barichas, you daven chatzah, and you're learning chassidus and all that. And now you got to get this to the Shabbos. But before you go home to make this to the Shabbos, there is a lavish kidush in shul. So what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that the lavish kiddush doesn't replace the Suda Shabbos. I just quoted to you that the Alter Rebbe says that Suda Shabbos needs to be with pas. So if the kiddush has lechem mishnah, the kiddush has pas, that would be kiddush b'makom, so there will be pas. Okay, you have another issue. The other issue is you're not doing it with your family, and there should be a Shabbos atmosphere with your family. That's a conversation for itself. But if the kiddush has pas, okay, so it's kiddush b'makom suda, the real suda. But most of the kiddushim don't have pas. They have herrings and kugels and cold cuts and all that. So you're going to geisach essen during that kiddush time, and you'll come home full. And if you come home full, you're not going to have suda Shabbos l'tei oven. Who says that's such a big problem? So there's actually, it's brought earlier in Siman Reish Mem Tes. The Alter Rebbe in Siman Reish Mem Tes speaks about Friday, when you're allowed to, how much you're allowed to eat Friday. Friday! There's a whole Siman of Shulchan Aruch that discusses don't overeat too close to Shabbos on Friday, because the Suda Shabbos at night has to be eaten l'tei oven. So the Alter Rebbe in Reish Mem Tes Siv Yud says, once it gets dark on Friday afternoon, or even if it's not dark, if you are Mekabel Shabbos Mibayim, mitzvah lihimona melecho shum davar. You should not eat anything once Shabbos enters, Friday night, or once you accepted Shabbos. Afila b'loy k'fi suda, even if it's not a meal. And even if you made kidush, the Alter Rebbe says, even if you made kidush, don't start snacking on stuff, on cakes and herrings and everything. Why? Because as long as you don't eat the lechem, you don't have the ikar to the Shabbos. You're gonna take away the geschmack from the real Suda with the Torah, with the Chachamim want for Suda Shabbos. So therefore, don't overeat, even if you made kiddush, because I want to make sure that the challah is done l'tei oven, the bread. In the parentheses, the Alter Rebbe says, Mikol Mokim, nevertheless, ein limches biyada mekil. And he's saying, this is the halacha. If you want me to find loopholes, excuses, how you could get it done, if you see somebody doing it, you don't have to protest against him. Because the din is that you have to eat bread, yes. But the din that you have to eat bread l'tei oven, that's not a chiyuv gomer. That's a good thing, but it's not a chiyuv gomer. So the bottom line is, if you dry letter of the law, or the best thing is to make sure not, if you want to be timed something by the kiddush, fine. But to eat so much by the kiddush that you can't have through the Shabbos properly, that you're making a tuffle, a ikar a tuffle. Now this halacha, the Alter Rebbe says Friday night, by kiddush Friday night. And the same halacha obviously applies for Shabbos by day. However, some say that Shabbos, Friday night, it's even more chomer than Shabbos by day. Because Friday night, because it's a whole day's work and a whole day you ate, or whatever, if you're going to eat after making kiddush, mamish not going to be l'tei oven. Shabbos by day, because you didn't really eat, even if you eat enough by the kiddush, there is still enough place for the pas b'tei oven. But again, the dry letter of the law is you have to leave enough tei oven for the pas, which is the ikar shudah for Shabbos.